So, what is politics, really? I mean, beyond all the headlines, the arguments, the endless election cycles, today we're going to strip it all the way back to the absolute basics, the essential building blocks of how it all works. Ready? Let's dive in. It really all boils down to this one simple but kind of brilliant question. At its very heart, politics is just the process of figuring this out. For any group of people, who gets the good stuff, when do they actually get it, and how on earth are those decisions made? So, if you want the more formal definition, this is it. Politics is the fundamental activity we use to organize ourselves into communities. It's the system for settling our disagreements, for handing out resources, and that's everything from money to healthcare to social status. It's what keeps us from just descending into total chaos. And the main tool we've come up with for creating that order is, you guessed it, government. You can think of government as the formal machinery a society builds to make and enforce all of its rules and big decisions. But for any of that to actually work, for governments to do anything at all, they need one absolutely essential ingredient. It is the fuel that makes the entire political engine run: power. Right. It's a fair question. How does a government actually get people to follow the rules, to pay taxes, to create that order we were just talking about? What gives it the juice to actually make things happen? Well, the answer is power. Simple as that. In the most basic sense, power is the ability to get someone to do something they wouldn't have done otherwise. It is the fundamental currency of all politics. Okay, but here's a super important distinction we have to make. Power is just that raw ability. Authority, on the other hand, is the accepted right to use that power. So, for example, when you see a police car's flashing lights and you pull over, you're not just recognizing their power to stop your car, you're recognizing their authority to do so. It's a subtle but huge difference. And all of this leads us to the ultimate goal for any stable political system: legitimacy. You can think of it as a three-step journey. First, there's power, the raw ability. Then, that power gets recognized as authority, the right to use it. But the final crucial step is when the public truly believes that authority is right and proper. That's legitimacy. And that is the bedrock of a government that doesn't have to rule by force alone. All right, so we've got power and we've got legitimacy. Now let's zoom out and look at how these concepts build up into the larger structures that actually make up a country. Now, this is a big one, a distinction that trips a lot of people up. So, the state is like the country's permanent hardware. It's the physical borders, the population, the core institutions like the military or the courts that stick around for centuries. The government, though, is like the temporary software that's running on that hardware. It's the people in charge right now, the current president, the prime minister, their administration. To put it as simply as possible, presidents and prime ministers, they come and they go. That's the government changing. But the United States or Germany or India, the state itself, that endures right through all those changes. Okay, so the state and the government are two huge pieces of the puzzle. But to really get the full picture, we need to add a couple more essential components into the mix. I think a fantastic way to think about this is like it's a board game. The state is the board game itself, the physical box and board. The nation is the players, a group of people who are connected by a shared identity, like language or culture. The regime is the rule book. It tells you how the game is played. Is it a democracy, an authoritarian system? And finally, institutions like a Congress or a Supreme Court are those key game pieces you use to make your moves. And why does this stuff matter? Well, because once you understand these four different pieces, you can start to analyze almost any political situation in the world. You can suddenly see how a nation of people, the players, might feel like their state, the board game, doesn't represent them. Or how changing the regime, the rulebook, can completely change a country's entire future. So now that we have all these building blocks, state, nation, regime, institutions, we can get to the really fun part. We can start putting them to use by comparing different systems all around the world. Exactly. We've just defined politics, power, and all these core structures of a country. So what's the payoff? Why should you even bother learning all these terms? The payoff is that we can now engage in what's called comparative politics. And this is where we stop looking at just our own country in a vacuum, and we start to analyze how different countries try to answer that very first question: who gets what, when, and how? And when you start comparing, you gain some incredible insights. For one, you understand your own country so much better. You also get to see how other people are trying to solve the same problems we are, like climate change or healthcare. And on a bigger scale, it lets us analyze these huge global trends, like the spread of democracy or the challenges of globalization. But ultimately, this is what comparison really gives us. It elevates our understanding from just knowing the facts to understanding the why. We move beyond just knowing that a country has a certain type of government to understanding why their system looks and acts so differently from another's. It's really the difference between just memorizing stuff and truly getting it. This quote from the political scientist Seymour Martin Lipset just sums it up perfectly. Without some point of comparison, you can't really see the unique features, the strengths, or, the weaknesses of your own system. It's like trying to describe water to a fish that's never been out of the bowl. So I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on. Now that you've got these basic building blocks, think about all the different political rule books out there in the world. If you had the power to borrow just one rule, one institution, or one norm from another country and bring it into your own, what would you choose and why? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.